Hey everyone, on this week's episode of the Healthy Human podcast, I, Rohan Vijayvikram, will be interviewing Jenny Kha, an EMTB who's working on her way to becoming a physician assistant. So the first question here is, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I am a person that used to be in marketing. I had my degree in marketing, worked in marketing for 2 years before I decided that I didn't like it anymore and that corporate life wasn't really for me. I questioned what would be the best career for me if I wasn't going to be in corporate, and healthcare immediately came to mind because I like helping people, and that's kind of what I was known for, and that's what my friends know. It's like, oh, Jenny likes to help people. She's really warm, she's really friendly. So I asked my friend who's an NP, and so she recommended healthcare, and now I'm on my way to be a physician assistant.
Nice. So I guess kind of going off of that, what was your favorite subject in high school or college?
So funny, I hated science. At the time, I was really bad at it. So actually reading and English was my best subjects, and sometimes history, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But then in college, it became nutrition. Even though I was in business, we still have to take our GEs. And so I chose a nutrition and geology course, and that kind of like dipped my toes into science and realized I was kind of good at it. And it wasn't until I'm in my prerequisites now that I'm like, oh man, I'm really good at science. I'm like, with a good GPA, and before I really didn't care about school and I wasn't interested, but now I'm doing pretty well. Yeah,
that's really great to hear.
Uh-huh.
So I guess again with that kind of college thing, what level of education is needed to get to where you are?
So I'm currently a medical assistant and an EMT. For medical assistants, you don't need a degree, you just need a certificate. And for EMTs, you need a license, and both of which you can get at your local community college. My EMT program, there's several. You can do an intensive 6-week course and then test for your, it's called an NREMT, which is your national registry. So you only really need 6 weeks for that one if you are lucky. And then for medical assisting, you actually need to be in a 2-year to a 1-year program. There's different accelerated programs for that one, and they all cost a bit of money, but if you can get into your local community college one, it's usually 2 years, and the training's pretty thorough. Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. Could you describe a day-to-day routine, so what a day of yours would look like on average?
Yeah, so on average as a medical assistant, I look to the schedule for the day, see what patients we have, how many, what to prepare for, and basically work with the doctor to how she wants us to go about our day. It consists of checking in patients, checking them out, kind of doing whatever procedures or interventions are needed within the visit. So sometimes it's any injections. We always grab vitals for every patient that we see in person. And then generally working on the phones too with the patients that need medication refills or any concerns we usually handle. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, we just wrap up all the paperwork, make sure everything's good, and if we have anything on a to-do list to carry on to the next day, mm-hmm. and then start that day all over again.
Yeah. So I guess you kind of mentioned interventions. So for our next question, what is one scientific innovation that you think has majorly affected your work and has benefited what you do?
So nothing, let me think about that one. For now, I would say like the mobile EKG is really cool. Mm-hmm. So we have an EKG in the office that before they're like these big clunky machines that you have to attach leads to, mm-hmm. so they could read heart rhythms. But now it's just like a USB. So you could just plug it into your laptop and then get an instant reading. Right. Yeah. And that's really helpful for those who have, those cardiovascular issues. Sometimes if they are feeling unwell, that's the kind of the first line of defense. We're like, okay, let's get an EKG. Mm-hmm. You're hypertensive, let's get an EKG. Mm-hmm. Or you feel like you have a heart murmur, let's get an EKG. Mm-hmm. And then we could further refer them to cardiology or send them to urgent care, depending on the result that we get.
Yeah. I guess going off of that, how has COVID affected your job and the way things work, and what are some of the problems that it has caused you?
So when COVID first started, I was still doing my marketing job, and I got laid off because I think everyone got laid off from their mm-hmm. jobs during COVID. And then it actually helped me because it confirmed my identity as someone who wanted to be in healthcare. Right. It didn't scare me off. Mm-hmm. So I started my EMT training, and then in 2021, when COVID, there was surges, I was an EMT at the time, and I was transporting COVID patients. So it was a bit more scary because you're in the back of the rig with these patients that are confirmed to be positive, and you're like in your gown and your double mask and you're N95. And it extended because these hospitals were so impacted in their emergency rooms that we are not allowed to leave until we hand off the patient. So there would be times where I'd be waiting with the patient for like 2, 3, 4 hours. And I used to work the night shift, so it would be like 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. and they're still unable to get a bed. And so I think that was the biggest impact, is that all these COVID patients had to be put in a specific unit away from all the other patients. And those patients used to stay longer. It's not like you could just discharge them, right? So for the new patients, it required a lot of work on the EMT because we had to stay with them and make sure that they stayed stable. Any conditions, if they needed oxygen, that they didn't run out of oxygen at the time that we were transporting them. And if they went into shock or something, we had to be ready to do something.
I see. And I guess the last question to end it off, if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give to yourself or to anyone who plans on pursuing this sort of career?
I would say believe in yourself a little more. I think when I was younger, I didn't know. I really wanted to be a doctor, but I was like, oh, that's kind of hard. There's like 8 years of training and schooling. And if I had just started back then and just went for it, I think I would have ended up being in med school. But not to say I don't regret my decision being a PA at all. But I think that if I had more confidence, I would have went into healthcare first without having to waste time in marketing per se, because I kind of felt like that was a safety net for me.
Thank you guys all for watching this episode of the Healthy Human Podcast. Be sure to tune into the next episode where I'll continue to do more of these interviews and explore the wonderful world of health. Until next time, remember, happiness is the product of good health.